Hey there, welcome back. I'm really excited you're here because we just got some absolutely incredible news that could put serious money back in your pocket. We're talking about the Social Security Expansion Act that's been making its way through Congress, and the latest updates show we could be looking at a $200 monthly increase to your Social Security benefits plus a one-time catch-up payment of $1,500 for eligible recipients. This isn't just wishful thinking or campaign promises, this is real legislation that's gaining momentum and could affect over 70 million Americans who rely on Social Security and SSI. But here's what makes this development so significant right now. The timing of this legislation coincides with growing pressure on lawmakers to address the purchasing power crisis that seniors have been facing for years. We're looking at benefits that haven't kept pace with real-world inflation, especially on essentials like housing, healthcare, and groceries. And this Expansion Act isn't just about throwing money at the problem, it's a comprehensive overhaul that could fundamentally change how Social Security benefits are calculated and distributed going forward. Here's the part that makes this month especially critical. The legislation is moving through committee hearings right now, and the support from both sides of the aisle is stronger than we've seen in years. On top of that, the funding mechanisms they've proposed are actually viable, which means this isn't just political theater, it's legislation that could realistically become law. But there are also timeline pressures, eligibility requirements, and implementation challenges that could determine whether you see this money in your account or get left waiting for years. So yeah, there's a lot happening behind the scenes. And before we dive into exactly who gets what and when this money might actually arrive, let me ask you something. If you could get an extra $200 every month starting tomorrow, what would that money mean for you? Would it help with medical bills, give you more breathing room for groceries, or finally let you afford some things you've been putting off? Drop a comment below and let me know. I read every single one, and it really helps me understand what's at stake for real families out there. And if this kind of breaking legislative news is valuable to you, please hit that subscribe button so you never miss updates on bills that could directly impact your wallet. Now, here's exactly what the Social Security Expansion Act includes and how it could affect your monthly payments. The $200 monthly boost, this isn't a temporary increase or a one-time adjustment. We're talking about a permanent $200 monthly increase to Social Security retirement benefits, survivor benefits, and disability benefits. For someone currently receiving the average Social Security payment of around $1,900, this would bring them up to $2,000 per month. That's $2,400 extra per year, every year. The $1,500 catch-up payment, here's where it gets really interesting. The legislation includes a one-time payment designed to compensate beneficiaries for years of inadequate cost of living adjustments. If you've been receiving Social Security for 5 years or more, you'd be eligible for this $1,500 payment, which would arrive as a separate deposit within 90 days of the law taking effect. SSI recipients, people on supplemental security income, wouldn't be left out. The bill includes a $100 monthly increase for SSI recipients, plus a $750 catch-up payment for those who've been on the program for 3 years or more. While these amounts are smaller than the Social Security increases, they represent significant improvements for people living on extremely limited incomes. Survivor benefits enhancement, one of the most important pieces of this legislation, addresses the financial crisis that many widows and widowers face. The bill would eliminate the reduction in survivor benefits and ensure that surviving spouses receive 100% of their deceased spouse's benefit amount instead of the current reduced payments. But here's where the politics and timing get complicated, and why this isn't a done deal yet. Legislative process. The bill has been introduced in both the House and Senate, and it's currently in committee hearings. The good news is that it has bipartisan support, which is rare for major Social Security legislation. The challenge is that it still needs to pass committee votes, floor votes in both chambers, and potentially survive filibuster attempts in the Senate. Funding mechanisms. Unlike previous Social Security expansion proposals that were vague about how to pay for improvements, this bill includes specific funding sources. It proposes raising the Social Security payroll tax cap so that high earners pay Social Security taxes on more of their income, and it includes provisions for investment income to be subject to Social Security taxes. Timeline pressures. There's significant pressure to get this passed before the 2026 elections, which means lawmakers have roughly 18 months to move this through the entire legislative process. That sounds like a lot of time, but major legislation often takes years to pass, and there are competing priorities that could slow things down. Opposition arguments. Critics of the bill argue that expanding benefits without addressing long-term trust fund solvency is fiscally irresponsible. They're pushing for means testing the increases or delaying implementation until the trust fund issues are resolved. Now let's talk about what this could mean for your personal financial situation if this legislation actually becomes law. Implementation timeline. If the bill passes tomorrow, you wouldn't see the money immediately. The legislation includes a 6-month implementation period for the monthly increases and a 90-day timeline for the catch-up payments. So realistically, we're looking at benefits potentially starting in late 2025 or early 2026. Eligibility requirements. For the monthly boost, you need to be receiving Social Security retirement, survivor, or disability benefits as of the date the law takes effect. For the catch-up payment, you need to have been receiving benefits for the specified time periods: 5 years for Social Security, 3 years for SSI. Tax implications. The monthly increases would be treated like regular Social Security benefits for tax purposes, which means they might push some people into higher tax brackets or make more of their Social Security taxable. The one-time catch-up payments are designed to be tax-free, but you should verify this with a tax professional. Impact on other benefits. This is crucial. The legislation includes protections to ensure that these Social Security increases don't disqualify people from other programs like SNAP, Medicaid, or housing assistance. This was a major concern with previous benefit increase proposals. Here's where things get really interesting from a political and economic perspective. Congressional math. The bill needs 218 votes in the House and 60 votes in the Senate, assuming a filibuster. Current co-sponsor counts suggest it has the House support, but the Senate math is tighter. Several key senators haven't committed either way, and their decisions could determine whether this passes. Presidential support. The current administration has indicated support for Social Security expansion, but hasn't specifically endorsed this bill. Presidential backing could provide crucial momentum, especially for convincing moderate Democrats and Republicans who are on the fence. Lobbying efforts. Senior advocacy groups like AARP are pushing hard for this legislation, and they have significant political influence. But there's also opposition from business groups and fiscal conservatives who argue the country can't afford major benefit expansions right now. Economic context. The legislation is being debated against the backdrop of ongoing inflation concerns and federal deficit discussions. Supporters argue that Social Security expansion would stimulate the economy, while opponents worry about adding to government spending. Now let's address some of the challenges and potential roadblocks that could affect whether you actually see this money. Trust fund timing. The Social Security Trust Fund is projected to face shortfalls in the 2030s. Some lawmakers want to address those long-term funding issues before expanding benefits, which could delay or complicate this legislation. Budget reconciliation. Depending on how the bill is structured, it might need to go through budget reconciliation, which has different rules and could limit what can be included in the final legislation. State-by-state impact. The funding mechanisms in the bill would affect different states differently, and some senators might oppose it if their state's high earners would pay significantly more in payroll taxes. Implementation challenges. The Social Security Administration is already overwhelmed with current workloads. Adding millions of benefit recalculations and new payments could strain the system and cause delays even if the law passes. But there are some really positive signs that this legislation has a better chance than previous Social Security expansion attempts. Bipartisan support. Unlike many other Social Security bills that split along party lines, this one has Republican co-sponsors, which significantly improves its chances of passage. Practical funding. The proposed funding mechanisms are realistic and don't require major tax increases on middle-class families, which makes it more politically viable. Public opinion. Polling shows overwhelming support for Social Security expansion among voters of both parties, which creates political pressure for lawmakers to act. Economic necessity. The purchasing power crisis facing seniors is becoming impossible to ignore, and many lawmakers recognize that some form of benefit increase is inevitable. So here's your action plan for staying informed and potentially influencing this legislation. 1. Contact your representatives. Call or email your House representative and both senators to express your support for the Social Security Expansion Act. Personal stories about how the extra money would help you are particularly powerful. 2. Stay informed about committee schedules. The bill needs to pass through specific committees before floor votes. Follow the committee schedules and contact committee members during key voting periods. 3. Join advocacy efforts organizations like AARP, the Alliance for Retired Americans, and Social Security Works are coordinating advocacy campaigns. Consider joining their efforts or sharing their information. 4. Prepare your documentation. If the bill passes, you'll want to be ready to verify your eligibility quickly. Make sure your Social Security records are current and you have documentation of when you started receiving benefits. 5. Plan conservatively. Don't make major financial commitments based on money you haven't received yet. This legislation could still fail or be significantly modified before passage. 6. Share your story. Talk to friends, family, and community members about how Social Security expansion would help you. Personal advocacy from constituents is one of the most effective ways to influence lawmakers. 7. Monitor the news closely. This situation is changing rapidly, and committee votes or floor votes could be scheduled with little advance notice.